Breaking news. This is World's Alert News bringing you the latest global conflict updates.
Marjorie Taylor Greene has emerged as a vocal critic of Donald Trump's decision to authorize large-scale strikes against Iran, arguing that the conflict contradicts the America First and No More Foreign Wars promises that help define their shared political base. Greene, who once campaigned energetically for Trump and was seen as a leading defender of his policies, now says the war in Iran represents a deep betrayal of those core campaign pledges. Marjorie Taylor Greene, long known as one of the most loyal and outspoken allies of Donald Trump, recently delivered a surprising and highly public criticism of the administration's decision to enter a major military conflict with Iran. For years, Greene built her political identity around defending Trump and promoting the America First movement that helped define his political base. She stood by him during multiple controversies, including impeachment battles and the aftermath of the January 6th United States Capitol attack, often acting as one of his most aggressive defenders in Congress and in the media. Because of that history, her decision to openly question his actions has drawn significant attention across American politics. During a televised interview, Greene argued that the current military operation against Iran contradicts one of the core promises that originally united many Trump supporters: ending long and costly foreign wars. She said that many voters supported Trump specifically because he repeatedly criticized past U.S. interventions in the Middle East and pledged that his leadership would avoid starting new conflicts. According to Greene, the launch of Operation Epic Fury represents a clear break from that promise. She described the war not as a strategic mistake, but as a betrayal of the expectations that millions of voters placed in the administration. Greene also raised concerns about the human and economic costs of the conflict. She pointed to reports of American military casualties, rising defense spending, and the broader financial burden that prolonged military operations place on taxpayers. In her comments, she emphasized that ordinary American families are already dealing with inflation, rising fuel prices, and economic uncertainty. According to her argument, a large-scale military campaign in the Middle East risks making those pressures even worse by destabilizing global energy markets and increasing government spending. Another element of her criticism focused on transparency and decision-making. Greene questioned whether the administration had clearly explained the long-term strategy behind the operation or the conditions under which the conflict would end. She also suggested that Congress and the public deserve a more detailed justification for entering a war of this scale. By raising these issues publicly, Greene effectively positioned herself alongside a smaller but growing group of conservative voices who argue that the United States should avoid new overseas military engagements and instead focus on domestic priorities and economic stability. Operation Epic Fury refers to a large-scale military campaign reportedly launched by the United States in coordination with Israel, targeting key elements of Iran's military and strategic infrastructure. The operation was authorized by Donald Trump and quickly became one of the most intense military escalations in the Middle East in recent years. According to multiple reports, the campaign began with a rapid series of coordinated air and missile strikes aimed at disabling Iran's nuclear facilities, missile launch systems, naval assets, and command structures. The goal of the operation was to significantly weaken Iran's ability to develop nuclear weapons and reduce the country's military capacity to threaten regional allies of the United States. During the initial phase of the campaign, hundreds of precision strikes were reportedly carried out within the first several hours. Military planners focused on strategic targets that included underground nuclear sites, missile production facilities, radar installations, and key military bases across Iran. Some reports suggested that high-ranking Iranian leadership figures were targeted during the opening wave of attacks, creating immediate shock across the region. The scale and speed of the operation indicated that planning for the campaign had been underway for an extended period before the strikes were launched. Iran responded quickly after the first round of attacks. Iranian forces launched large numbers of ballistic missiles and drones toward several military installations across the Middle East, where American troops are stationed. These strikes targeted bases located in countries such as Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, Jordan, and United Arab Emirates. The retaliatory attacks demonstrated how quickly a regional conflict could expand beyond a single country and affect multiple allied nations that host U.S. forces. Another major consequence of the operation involved disruptions to global energy routes, especially around the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most critical oil transit choke points. Tensions in this area led to attacks on shipping vessels and increased fears that global oil supplies could be severely affected if the conflict continued. Energy markets reacted immediately, with crude oil prices rising sharply as traders anticipated supply disruptions. Military analysts have described Operation Epic Fury as a high-risk strategy designed to deliver overwhelming force at the beginning of the conflict in order to cripple Iran's military infrastructure before a prolonged war could develop. The campaign involves air power, naval forces, intelligence operations, and advanced missile systems working together in a coordinated effort to weaken Iran's ability to retaliate effectively while maintaining pressure on strategic targets throughout the region. The escalating conflict following Operation Epic Fury has caused immediate and severe economic consequences, both domestically in the United States and globally, largely due to disruptions around the Strait of Hormuz, a critical choke point through which a significant portion of the world's oil supply transits. The sudden closure or partial disruption of this maritime corridor created instant panic in global energy markets, with Brent crude prices spiking past $119 per barrel in response to the threat to supply. Oil tankers navigating the region were reportedly attacked or delayed, including some high-profile incidents near Dubai, where drone debris caused fires at prominent infrastructure points, such as the Burj Al Arab, illustrating the immediate physical risks to commercial shipping and port operations. The surge in crude prices has a cascading effect on energy costs worldwide, driving gasoline, diesel, and heating fuel prices higher, which in turn increases transportation and production costs across multiple sectors of the economy. In addition to energy disruptions, the military escalation led to substantial direct financial costs for the United States. Reports indicate that in just the first 100 hours of the operation, the U.S. spent approximately $3.7 billion, covering expenses such as precision strikes, logistical support, mobilization of forces, and operational coordination with allies like Israel. More than 15,000 targets were reportedly struck, which not only required massive financial outlays, but also significant planning and operational resources, straining military budgets. This high expenditure comes at a time when domestic fiscal challenges are already affecting ordinary Americans, such as inflation, rising grocery costs, and economic uncertainty. Greene emphasized that these escalating costs directly impact taxpayers, highlighting the tension between military commitments abroad and financial pressures at home. Casualties have compounded the economic and social impact of the operation. Reports confirmed at least 13 American service members killed and over 200 wounded, with 10 of those classified as severely injured. Beyond the immediate human cost, these casualties impose long-term financial burdens, including medical care, veterans benefits, and support for families, further contributing to the total economic impact of the conflict. In addition, the military mobilization includes the deployment of a 5,000-strong Marine Expeditionary Unit, a force typically used as a precursor to ground invasions, signaling the potential for further escalation and additional costs. The ripple effects extend beyond energy and defense spending. Global trade is affected as freight costs rise due to supply chain disruptions, particularly in agricultural inputs like fertilizer, much of which transits the Strait of Hormuz. Farmers face higher input costs, which are likely to be passed on to consumers through increased food prices, creating a compounding effect on everyday household expenses. Analysts warn that without a rapid resolution or de-escalation, these combined financial pressures could exacerbate inflation, impact economic growth, and influence political and public opinion regarding U.S. foreign policy. The growing divide within the MAGA movement and the broader Republican Party over the Iran war reflects a significant realignment of political loyalties and ideological priorities. Traditionally, the MAGA coalition was characterized by a strong, unified base that rallied around Donald Trump, often prioritizing loyalty to him above policy disagreements. For years, this cohesion allowed Trump and his allies to push through legislative agendas, shape media narratives, and consolidate influence within the party. However, the decision to launch Operation Epic Fury has exposed underlying tensions within the coalition, revealing that loyalty to Trump is not unconditional when the stakes involve American lives, national resources, and perceived violations of core campaign promises. Some prominent figures like Marjorie Taylor Greene have publicly criticized the operation, framing it as a betrayal of the America First principles that initially galvanized the movement. Greene's critique emphasizes both moral and practical concerns, highlighting the human cost of the war, the economic strain on American families, and the lack of a clear exit strategy. By doing so, she has positioned herself in opposition not just to the president, but to a faction of the party that continues to support the military campaign without public dissent. This has created a visible rift, with some Republicans advocating for restraint, transparency, and adherence to pre-existing anti-interventionist commitments, while others remain steadfastly aligned with Trump's foreign policy decisions. The internal divisions extend beyond individual criticisms. Polling data and recent electoral results suggest that the anti-war wing of the party represents a minority within Republican ranks, Yet it is gaining attention because it speaks to broader concerns among younger voters, independents, and swing constituencies. The party faces a dilemma, balancing loyalty to Trump and his political brand with the need to respond to an electorate increasingly worried about the costs and consequences of extended military engagement. The split also reflects generational differences, with younger conservatives expressing frustration over long-term foreign entanglements and fiscal mismanagement, while older factions remain more committed to traditional party hierarchies and foreign policy positions. Media coverage and social platforms amplify the divide, as dissenting voices within the party can now reach national audiences in real time. Greene's interviews and social media posts have forced public acknowledgement of disagreements that previously remained behind closed doors, making intra-party debate more visible and urgent. This fragmentation has implications for upcoming elections, legislative priorities, and the overall credibility of the MAGA movement. Political analysts suggest that unless the party reconciles these differences, the visible fracture could weaken Republican cohesion, influence voter behavior, and shape the future trajectory of the party in ways that extend well beyond the immediate conflict in Iran.